And also, let me know something good that happened to you this week. I know it's just Tuesday, but it's always good to know what's going on well in people's lives. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you on that. Our for me, it's been a really good week. We've been working on some development projects, and that's going very, very well. Some exciting things that are happening throughout our business in that arena, and just excited getting offers on properties and getting tenants moved in some other properties. So it's just a really good time to be in the real estate business, especially here around Nashville. The thing that I always caution people of is that it's not as easy as it seems. It's not HGTV. So you just got to be careful of what you do and who you do it with. Sometimes people have little schemes for you, and you got to make sure you don't fall for them, right? So I think that's it. So let's see. Wanda is on, and we will get you in the room very shortly here, Wanda. Thank you for joining us. So did anybody go downtown, wherever you live? Did you go to the hottest areas of your city? We went last Friday, went downtown Nashville over on Broadway. And I tell you what, it was rocking. Hopefully we don't have any spikes or anything like that, because that's that the COVID is still around. It hasn't gone anywhere, and I'm not sure what type of precautions people were taking. So let's make sure that whatever you do, you are taking precautions. Give me a hot second. I'm going to pull my. I need another light over here. So hold 1 second, and I'll be right back with you. All right, I'm back. Tell you what, technology is great when it works, and when it doesn't, you got to be ready to pivot. So that's what we had to do today is have a quick pivot. All right. So again, let me know something good that's going on in your world. If you will just go ahead and type it in, I'm definitely looking forward to hearing from you and seeing what's going on good in your world. We have wonderful weather here in the Nashville area. What's the weather like where you are? I know it's it can be different in all parts of the country. So give us an idea of what the weather is like in your world. And so we get moving on today with our show. Also, I want to shout out our sponsors. MJC Insurance Group, mjcins.com, mjcinsurancegroup.com. Hey, Wanda. I can't. Okay. Yeah, you're on mute. So that's Leon Wright and his company. They are there to help you with any of your homeowners insurance, auto insurance, any type of insurance needs that you have. Give MJC Insurance a ring. You can go to the website, mjcins.com. Also want to thank Mr. Terrell Perry at Molet Investment Services. He is around to help you determine the proper life insurance needs that you have. Also, any financial services that you need. So many people have set these financial goals and wealth building goals and just haven't actually implemented. And so Terrell is around to help you actually put the plan on paper, make it plain, and then move forward with it. And of course, SherelleLands.com. Sherelle Lands, my co-host, who's hanging out in the island somewhere today, but she's listening in. And but check out her website, SherelleLands.com or VisionStrategyManagement.com, and check out the books that she has, the courses that she offers, and she'll be happy to even come out to your company and help you get your program started and implemented. So with that, we want to thank you all for tuning in. We have a treat for you today. I tell you, we have a treat for you today. This woman, this executive, this philanthropist, power leader in across the globe. It's not UBS is not just a local company. It's a worldwide organization. And Wanda Lyle is a leader in that organization. But I think what really impresses me about Wanda is if you meet her just on the street somewhere, there's something special about her, but won't really figure out what it is until she tells you, because she just has so much humility and just a spirit of service and helping others. So we want to welcome Wanda Lyle to the room. Wanda, you got to come on unmute, and we want to hear from you today.
Thank you, Lee. It's really great to be here, and you're very generous with your compliments, and I appreciate it. It is actually something that I don't do consciously, but I think is important, that everybody's just people. Mm-hmm. And so, treating people the way you want to be treated is pretty much my rule of thumb, my mantra.
Yes, indeed. If you remember, I think the first time we had a conversation, it was a couple of years ago on a Sunday at the library picnic, right?
You had your baby with you, yeah.
Yeah. And you had your granddaughter, and I think they're all a little bit older now.
Yeah, it goes way too fast.
Yes, it does. So Wanda, my co-host Sherelle wasn't able to be here today, but she does have a question for you, and so the question that she has for you, and then we'll ask this question, then we'll let you go through a more formal introduction. But she wants to know, what's your story of grit? What's it taken for you to dig in and to accomplish what you've accomplished so far in your career?
So if I had to pick one word, I would say courage. Okay. I'm the middle child of 5 from Mississippi. My father was a truck driver. My mom worked for the Department of Agriculture. My older sister was the first in the family to go to college. So we're all first generation college graduates from a small town. And no one usually left. The only time my parents left was when my father was in the Army. And my husband and I had an opportunity to go into management, but it meant moving to Kansas, to Overland Park, Kansas.
Okay.
Which meant my husband needed to give up his job and get a new one. Mm-hmm. And we had 2 children, and that were at the time 4 and 7. And so having the courage to take what we thought was a reasonable risk. I look back now and I'm like, oh boy, maybe we were crazy how reasonable was the risk, because like I said, my husband gave up his job and we moved with 2 children for $40,000 a year. But I thought that was pretty good, since when I started out making $800 a month, which is $9,600 a year.
Right. Wow.
So I'd come a long way.
Yes, indeed.
But having the courage to leave what was familiar and give up a job and have the support of your husband, it was scary. But we thought that it was the best opportunity for our family, and so, like you said, we took a hold of that grit and said, okay, let's go for it. So,
yeah. So, and I was going to ask this question, but you kind of brought it up. Talk about the partnership that you and your husband have, and how that's worked out, and how you all made the decisions that you all made, because they were, in a sense, especially when you got started, a bit untraditional, compared to probably some of what his friends were doing or would have thought.
It was actually, I didn't realize how radical it would seem to some people, but it was very untraditional, and not easy for him. And he was great. And so we started with that first move. Our process was that we would sit down and talk about, because at the time I started in the industry, as far as management is concerned, was in the early 90s. And in order to move up, you had to move.
Right.
So we went from Memphis to Overland Park, Kansas to St. Louis to Houston to New Jersey and then Nashville.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And so that's a lot of uprooting family and leaving friends and that sort of thing. And so, with every move, we would sit down and talk about, with not just with me and Jerry, but with the kids as they got older, and say, what are the opportunities? What are the disadvantages? And the big question was, does everyone think that they can do this and find a way to be happy and help each other be happy? Or do we stay where we are?
Gotcha.
And so I think having that conversation, but he should be sainted in a lot of ways, because, people say, what does your husband do? I said, oh, I ruined his career because I drug him around with mine. But he was always extremely supportive, and still is, not just of me, but of the girls and now our grandchildren. And so it's not an understatement or a cliche to say I couldn't have done it if it hadn't been, a real partnership that he was willing to, give 100% with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I talked to various couples, and again, you're probably right, especially at the time. He probably does deserve some sainthood.
Well, when we first were moving, the woman who was the head of all of our relocation services called me about the move to Overland Park and said, we rarely move women, and we never move married women.
Okay.
So we're going to do everything we can to make this as easy as possible. And that was kind of like an aha moment. I was like, what have I done? But it was true. And even, talking about some of the things, actually, one of the most vivid memories is when I moved to St. Louis and was being introduced in the office there, and walking around and talking to the financial advisors. A gentleman who had been in the business for 40 years at the time, while shaking my hand, said, what kind of man moves with his wife's job? And,
yeah,
we're still shaking hands, and I'm like, a very secure one.
Yes.
And it was true. Jerry is very comfortable with himself and very confident in his own skin. But that's the kind of mindset that we get dealt with.
Right.
From some people, not everyone, but some people.
Yeah. Well, and as I mentioned, from during those times, compared to now, you kind of see it's a little bit of a different swing, but still not widely, widely publicized. Anyway, of course, as a financial advisor for 27 years, I got a chance to see different people's financial situations. So, but at the end of the day, as I mentioned at the beginning, you have so much humility. It didn't matter I think, and I've met Jerry, and I think just for him, it's like, as you said, what's best for the family. And, I love this woman, and she loves me, and we're going to go make it happen. And we're going to do it the best way we can and what works for us. Right.
And one of the things that I always thought about was, if it were reversed, no one would think it was unusual at all.
At all.
And so, the fact that, like, he retired, 8 years ago, and people were like, you still working, your husband's retired? And I was like, but if it was the other way around, would you be asking that question?
Exactly.
And so, just, making people think for a second that that's okay. I chose to work, and, and the reason he retired was because we were still in New Jersey, and the job that he had was in St. Louis, and they wanted him to, they needed him to come back in house in St. Louis, or they needed someone who could. And so rather than start looking for a new job, I was like, just retire, enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. But that talks again about your partnership and respect and love for each other. So now introduce yourself to us. I know we kind of got going, but introduce yourself to us. Who is Wanda Lyle? Where are you from, and all that good stuff? All the stuff that people want to hear.
So who is Wanda Lyle? Wanda Lyle is a wife, mother of 2 daughters who are 35 and 31, and 3 grandchildren who may or may not be heard in the background during this.
All right, that's all good.
Who are 6, 3, and 5 months. And I'm also the general manager and managing director for UBS Business Solutions Center downtown. And I'm also the president of UBS Business Solutions US LLC, which is the service company that provides all of our back office services for our operating entities. So HR, legal, compliance, operations, IT, finance. I think I got it, covered it all. So we have about 1,500 employees down, well, normally would be downtown, who are working remotely and have been since last March 12th. And so we're very happy to be in Nashville and to be part of Nashville. It's been a great opportunity to be able to move here and build out the Business Solutions Center.
So COVID, and I mean you're managing through it. You mentioned people kind of used to work downtown, but now a lot of people are working from home. What's that experience been like for you? What has that taught you about yourself and about the rest of your team?
It has taught me that we're much more flexible and resilient than we might think we are, both as individuals and as a corporation. But it's also taught me or reinforced to me how much I enjoy being around people in person, and how much energy we get from that. And I miss that a lot. But what's been great about it is things that we, from an industry standpoint, even from a regulatory standpoint, things we thought we couldn't do or wouldn't work have worked. And so, thinking about the opportunities that might create down the road. So as opposed to just doing a snap back to what used to be, trying to take the best of what was and what is, and seeing what opportunities those create for people. And I think particularly it may create some additional opportunities for women.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because in the past, women would take off when they had kids, and I don't know if that's what you're talking about. So
yeah, it's funny because I was thinking about that. And I was like, as long as women birth, candidly, there's going to be times when you're out of the office, and then there'll be times that we actually have a really good maternity leave policy. So our moms get to, whether it's adoption or otherwise, they have 5 months paid leave to be at home, and that's fantastic. But when that 5 months is up, it creates additional options potentially,
right?
Particularly while the babies are small, to be able to have more additional time with the baby, but also be able to do your job and do it effectively.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. Like I said, I think it's better to see what it might be as opposed to trying to put the genie back in the bottle.
Exactly. I think I fully agree with you. I think now one of the things you said earlier was you kind of miss the energy of being around each other, and I think for me, I miss that as well. So I've kind of eased back into the office a couple of days a week, but I don't think I'd want to go in every day of the week, if that makes sense. So if I can go in 2.5, 3 days a week, I'm good. I don't need to be there every day, because now everybody's invested in all the technologies you need to be able to work from home anyway. What do you think your strategy will look like? If it were up to you, how would it be? So you don't have to speak any proprietary.
I actually am, pretty closely aligned with what our corporate strategy is, and so we've done a lot of employee surveys and are paying attention to it. And also, as time goes on, some of the results of the surveys change or may change more. And so our approach is that really try, first of all, is your job one from a regulatory standpoint, or the type of job you have, is it one that can be done remotely? And if so, what is your personal preference? Do you want to be in the office, or do you want to work from home, or do you want, like you said, some days in, some days from home, and trying to accommodate that. Because two things: your most valuable resources are your people.
Yes.
Your most expensive costs are real estate and people.
Yes.
So you want to keep your people happy. You don't want to have turnover. You don't want to lose your culture. One thing I'm really proud of is the culture that we've created here in Nashville is really good. People enjoy each other and they enjoy working together, and you don't want to lose that. So thinking about ways that you can continue to maintain it. But if you can retain employees and they're engaged and feel enabled and are happy, and they're getting their work done, then okay, let's figure out how to do it. So we're also being very protective of our employees. So I have, even as the general manager, have not been back to the office as yet.
Really?
Because part of what we look at are what the CDC evaluation is of the area. And so Nashville has been amber and is improving. So when it moves to, I think, yellow and stays there for 2 weeks, then we can increase the number of people that are coming to the office. Until it happens, though, we don't want to put anyone at risk.
Right.
And so, looking at, personally, do you feel comfortable coming back to the office? When you come back to the office, what does that mean as far as how close you sit to people? Not necessarily wearing masks if they're not required anymore, but what does it mean about the break room and food and the all of that sort of thing, and how do you manage it so that people feel comfortable and safe and can do their jobs without worrying about being put in a position where they might be exposed to danger from a disease or an illness, I should say.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So I mean, and you all have a lot of people. It's not just one or two people coming back to work.
Yeah, so we've only had about 40 people in the office downtown, and they're, like I said, they're people that need access to certain equipment or systems or whatever, or from a regulatory standpoint, can't not be in an office.
Gotcha. Yeah. Financial services, lots of regulations.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Wanda, you have excelled in an industry that's, in large part, male dominated. What would you say the companies that you've worked with had in place that didn't prevent you from reaching your potential?
That didn't prevent me. I would maybe turn it around a bit and say that there were, well, actually, I'd say there are a lot of individuals that make up the company that were very supportive and open-minded. I remember when I was still in Memphis at the time, and the manager of the branch was looking for an assistant, and I was actually expecting our second child, and she was due within like 6 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so, I was like, well, there's no reason for me to put and I told him, I was like, I'd love to be your assistant, but, I understand, expecting our baby and everything in 6 weeks, that it doesn't make sense. And he said, well, only if you're not the most qualified for the job. And I said, what? And he said, you expecting a baby has nothing to do with my decision. If you're interested in the job, put your hand up.
Okay.
And I did, and he hired me.
Wow. Okay.
And I went out on maternity leave. And so, of course, while I'm on maternity leave, I'm like, the operations manager would come by my house and drop off work, and I would do things from home.
Okay.
And then she would pick it up on her way in. But that wasn't because he wanted me to. It was because I was like, this guy hired me. I'm going to do everything I can to make it work for me, my baby, and for him too.
Okay.
So, individuals like him, and there are lots of them along the way, and they make up the company. The company's not, as it's not some building. It's the people that make up that work in the building. And so, there've been a lot of really good people that said, this is what you want, go for it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Phenomenal. So, and now what are you doing? What's your role in making sure that other women have have the same opportunities that you have?
So I feel a tremendous responsibility for making sure that we have programs and opportunities to, for them to be developed, to be visible, and to gain additional experiences. And then we actually just went through, a 3-hour session yesterday for a talent assessment, and where we go through our teams and say, who has further potential, who has high potential, who's at potential, and for the further and high, what do we need to give them, to support them in achieving that potential?
Okay.
And, is it a training program? Is it exposure? Is it getting to know people in senior management? And one of the things I've always enjoyed doing is introducing. So, like, if we had a group of managers in for a training program and senior management spoke to them, I made sure that as many people as possible got introduced to them and helped facilitate the conversation where, they knew something about it, because, those opportunities don't come around every day. But then, when there's something being thought about as far as opportunities or promotions or whatever, they'll have that connection. And so, and I mentor people in different programs. And by the way, I don't just mentor women.
Right. Yeah.
I have 3 guys that I mentor right now. And so, making sure talent, whatever gender or race or belief system or whatever they have, get the right opportunities to continue to grow. And I am absolutely certain that I don't get everybody, but I'm going to try.
Everybody you can reach, everybody you can get to, and still be effective as a leader of the organization, right? So now, do you have a personal mantra that you live by? And if so, what is it, if you don't mind sharing it with our listeners?
It's what I said earlier, and actually, it's treat people the way you want to be treated. And that was the first thing. 2 things that I taught my children was, treat people the way you want to be treated, and responsibility, doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. Be responsible. But I was reminded about how powerful it is about treating people the way you want to be treated when I was in Leadership Nashville. And, someone asked the question, how do I know when I'm looking at, diversity and the things we want to do and we want to talk about, how do I know what's right? And they said, treat people the way you want to be treated. If you treat people with honesty, they'll be honest with you. If you want to be treated fairly, be fair to other people.
Right.
And, and it's so easy to say, but it's so powerful too. And so I really do try to think about, how would I feel if I were in the same situation or the same position, and how would I want to be treated in that?
Okay. That's just very important. I agree with the treat people the way you want to be treated. If you do that,
everything else falls into place.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I often tell people that if my kids are hanging out with them and they say, well, you have any rules? I say, yeah, they follow your rules. And you just treat my kids like you treat yours. And I think everything's going to be fine. Exactly. And I tell my kids, I say, hey, Mr. Jerry and Miss Wanda are in charge of you. So whatever they tell you the rules are, those are the rules. You're not calling daddy or mommy to say, oh, Miss Wanda wants us to do such and such. Well, do it.
My father, before first grade of all things, he told every one of us, it was like, okay, just remember, if you get in trouble at school, you're going to be in trouble at home. If you get spanking at school, there's one waiting for you when you get home.
There you go. Oh gosh. So speaking of your dad, what role did your parents play in getting you on track to get where you are?
Gosh, it's interesting, and it's probably a little bit complicated. My mother always worked,
Okay.
and so it was not a foreign. And this is back, she actually was, like I said, worked for the Department of Agriculture, and had a good job and paid well, and was, if you think back during that time, most women that worked outside the home were teachers, nurses, and
Hmm.
secretaries. And
Right.
it was none of those three things. So, however, having said that, I remember distinctly one day, she's balancing the checkbook and talking to my dad, and said something that basically asked him permission. I was in middle school by this time, to write a check
Mm.
for something that was a necessity. And I looked at her and I was like, "Do you have a separate bank account?" And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you have a job, so you get paid. Does your money go in a different account?" And she's like, "No, why?" And I was like, "Then why are you asking him if it's okay to write a check?" And my father basically told me to mind my own business. You know? And so he was a very traditional, and I think I threw him curveballs all the time.
I'm sure.
And I was actually usually the peacemaker, being in the middle, but
Uh-huh.
in that respect, I was the one that was always kind of pushing the boundary, and my mother was like, "Oh boy, here we go."
It's gonna be a long night, not for
Yep,
Wanda, but for me.
for everybody. And so, but I questioned it, and um, but they, on one hand, it was like a little bit of a thorn in the side, but on the other, I think they respected it as
Mhm.
well.
Okay.
And they, they knew that I was gonna had to have an answer. It was like I needed to understand so I could like
Right.
put it away.
Okay.
And that made them think about it.
Mm.
Now we're talking about the early '60s, so like I said, me asking, "Why are you asking if you can write that check?"
Such an
Was
innocent,
probably.
innocent question, but but you thought through that because you knew your mom went to work every day,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I think about my children are very logical too, and so it just occurred to me because I was like, where do they get this? Because I've been boxed in by a 5-year-old over a puppy because she's like, I'm a big girl, aren't I? Yes, you're a big girl. I know I'm a big girl because I'm getting to go to this baby shower. Yes, that's right. So I'm a big girl.
Uh-huh.
I said yes, and she said, so I could have a puppy. And I said, what do you mean you can have a puppy? She said, you said when I'm a big girl, I could have a puppy.
Oh,
So yeah, you pay. You get, as
yeah,
my husband's aunt used to say, you pay for your raising.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I asked my mom and dad about the checkbook. I had to work my way out of having a puppy.
I can only imagine. I know our kids have asked for a dog before, and what I tell them is, I'm not that dad that's going to be getting up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning to walk the dog. So if you're game, we can talk about it. And they're like, yeah, no, because I think they realize that I'm not joking with them. I'm not
Yeah.
cleaning it. I'm not scooping poop or anything. Um, and,
Yep.
and Valerie's not either because she's not interested in any pets either. So they're gonna be doing.
Well, we ended up getting a puppy, not right then, but we did get a puppy. And
Did you?
so, yeah, it's lucky the poor dog survived, but they loved it. And we had her for like 14 years. So,
Okay.
but yeah, it boxed me right in.
Uh-oh. I tell you, these kids. I'm a middle child also, so um, I get the peacemaking aspect of it, and it's kind of we're middle children are different. I'd
Yeah.
put it.
I'm a big believer in birth order. I mean, I look, even at the grandchildren, and you can see, the impact. And the middle child, especially, I don't know about your family. Ours was girl, boy, girl, boy, girl.
Mm-hmm.
And to make it even more complicated, my brother, who's just 3 years older than I am, was hit by a car when he was 3 years old.
Oh wow.
And so I was still an infant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a miracle he survived,
Okay.
but was in the hospital for weeks.
Oh wow.
And so, and then by the time he was able, I would actually stay with my grandmother and my aunt. And by the time I came home, my mom was expecting my little brother. And so, you learn to be flexible as the middle
Yes.
child,
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. And I think that helps us out later on in life. My wife's a middle child also. And so we're just, we kind of a little bit laid back. Things don't stress you out as much on either end. And you
Tell the truth, though, we're willing to poke the bear.
Indeed, yes.
We're just a little bit sneaky about how we do it.
Indeed, because we've had to navigate in between others. And we kind of like the fact that nobody's paying us all the attention. Early on, you may not be cool with it, but a little later on, you're like, there's some benefit to this.
Absolutely. You'll appreciate this, though. When my husband and I were talking about how many children, I didn't hesitate. I said 2. And he said 2. And I said, there's no oldest, there's no youngest, and there's no middle. And he looked at me and I said, and everyone has their own car door. Because when, if you get to 3, everybody doesn't have their own car door and somebody's touching somebody. And it's like, no, I already know. Do you know how many disagreements and arguments I headed off by just having 2 children because they both had their own car door and they didn't have to touch.
That's true. There's a lot of facts to that, a lot of truth to that. Oh, gosh. So Wanda, you're not only involved and successful corporately in your company, but what do you like doing? You're very successful and involved philanthropically, and I think I'm supposed to take a break. So you'll get to. I'm gonna let you get a glass of water, a little drink of water, and then when you come back, talk about why your volunteerism, your philanthropic endeavors, why those are important to you, and even if they've been beneficial to you in your career, and if so, how. So we'll give you about 1 minute, and I'm going to thank our sponsors, and we'll be back. So we want to thank Wanda for the first part of our show today. I tell you, it's very much it's very exciting to hear from Wanda and just the insight that she has on working and being a successful executive over the years, and just being really transcending through generations to the level where she is now. So we're excited and hope you all will take time to share and let your friends and your network know that we're getting ready to kick into the second 3/4 or 25%, however that works. Yeah, the last quarter. We're going into the last quarter because I didn't take any breaks early, but we're going to the last quarter of our of the show, and we would love for all your friends to check in and catch up and learn more from Wanda. If you all will, if you have any questions, feel free to send your questions in, and we will try to do everything we can to answer those questions. I want to thank our sponsors this evening: MJC Insurance, mjcins.com, mjcins.com. Check out their website. Leon and his team are definitely ready and willing to help you find the best fit in insurance for you, because the lowest price doesn't always mean it's the best fit. You want to make sure that the things that are important to you are covered. And so they'll help you with your homeowners, your auto, your motorcycle, workers' comp, any type of property and casualty insurance needs that you have. They're definitely there to help you. And the great thing is they'll shop different companies, and these are major companies that they'll shop and help find you the best company for you and your family. And then we want to thank Terrell Perry at Mollett Investment Services. Terrell at MollettInvestmentServices.com is his email. Terrell, TERRELL at MollettInvestmentServices.com. So reach out to Terrell, let him put together a financial plan for you and an insurance plan, and allow him to help you reach your goals that you and your family have set for yourselves. And then lastly, I want to thank my co-host, Sherelle Lands, and go check out her website, SherelleLands.com, CharrerElle, Lands, ALANS.com, or VisionStrategyManagement.com. Sherelle has a number of books on her site that you can order that will help you put together your vision, but more importantly, execute your vision. And also she has different training that will also do the same thing. So check her out and see what she can do. And the last thing I do want to do is shout out The Table, and check out our website, thetableaction.com, thetableaction.com. We'll talk about a little bit about that with Wanda. She's one of our co-founders, or one of our co-founding board members. And so after she gets through talking about her philanthropic endeavors, we'll talk a little bit more about The Table with her. All right. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you share to your network. If someone can't get to Facebook, they can go to our YouTube channel, Women with Grit, and subscribe and catch up with the last quarter of our show. Thank you. Wanda, you're back. All right. So our listeners are ready and waiting to hear about your philanthropic endeavors. And then we're going to talk a little bit about The Table before we wrap up.
Great. So, I'm fortunate because the two primary focuses of UBS from a philanthropic standpoint is education. And specifically, UBS is about college access and success. Mine's a little broader than that because if you can't read as a child, you're not going to go to college. So right. I think it starts way before that. And the other is entrepreneurship, which, the small businesses and entrepreneurs are the backbone of our economy. And so I'm supportive of that for a very different reason. But education is, I think first of all, I went to public school. My brothers and sisters went to public schools, went to public universities. And I passionately believe, by the way, I should say our older daughter is a teacher. She's not in the classroom right now, but she is a teacher. Our younger daughter is a nurse. Healthcare is another area that is particularly important to me. But, when and you probably noticed this, Lee, when we were at the library and I was sitting out there with you and your baby, children are so important to me. And I passionately believe that all children should have access to a quality public education. It's fine if people choose to go to a private school or have the means to have a private education, but every child deserves a quality education that they can have access to. So education is something that is, it's an equalizer. It's a game changer. It levels the playing field in so many different ways if you have an education. And so that's been a lot of my focus. I've been on the board of the National Public Education Foundation and been involved in a lot of other activities around education. I'm on the board of the Tennessee College Access and Success Network. We've done other things like that. So anyway, I think people may have some questions, but education is the one that, like I said, really pulls at my heartstrings, and that in healthcare.
Okay. All right. Great. Yep. And so and one of the things I can tell is that you don't do this just because your company wants you to do the philanthropic outreach. It seems like it's just kind of part of your DNA, you and Jerry's DNA.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great that it aligns with UBS, but if UBS didn't have that focus, I would still be something that I would be involved with. That and the YWCA, domestic violence and eliminating racism, those are also very important tenets to me that I think deserve support and advocacy.
Well, thank you. So you do have a few shout outs. You have a shout out from Jackie Horton Griffin, who was one of our guests a few weeks ago, and she just said she's glad to join today. Laurinette Sweeney Ford, Wanda, you even make connections socially, so thank you. Lauren Jones Ladd, and she was commenting on one of your statements, just kind of said facts. So everyone, if you have any questions, feel free to send those questions in. It's a great time to get answers from a very seasoned, successful executive in person in this country. And hey, you can get it now. So make sure you get your questions asked and answered right now. So Wanda, while we're waiting on questions, additional questions to come in, or comments, let's talk about the table and your involvement with the table. People on the show have heard me talk about it, but you are one of our founding board members, and then we go back to the Expand days. So, but I want you to talk a little bit about what you saw in the table that really attracted you to what we're doing.
So, it did begin with Expand, and seeing the need to continue to move that forward, but also, one of the things that's, different from Expand for people that weren't involved in it were, that was conversations to make connections and to make, have conversations that, drew out how we're more alike than we are different, and really build those relationships. But in the table, it's about, okay, how do we put these in actions, and how do we have measurable outcomes where we can truly make a difference in Nashville as an inclusive city that offers diversity and equity, not just, as the old saying goes, not just being invited to the dance, but getting asked to dance. And how do we do that? And that was, really important to me. And it really wasn't predicated on some of the horrific events we experienced this year, although it did, emphasize the need for us to continue to push that forward. But, I grew up in Mississippi. I grew up in a time of racism. I grew up, that hasn't gone away, obviously, entirely. And now I have a very diverse and beautiful family. And I continue to learn about some of the opportunities and differences that, people experience, and helping people understand, what you've never experienced. Just like Lee, you and I have talked about profiling, one of my biggest aha moments, and I think I've shared this with you before, was in a meeting in New Jersey. Some friends were coming in. It was actually, a conference of all of our Black financial advisors. So clearly there were no women, but
right.
I actually was friends with a couple of the advisors that were going to be there, one from Atlanta, one from St. Louis, and they asked me if I would meet them at the reception, the cocktail reception, and I said sure. And I walked in, and I kind of took back, and I walked over to my two friends and I said, I get it. And they're like, what do you get? I said, about, being in a room where people are not like you. And they're like, well, you've always gotten that. I said, no, I didn't. I said, when I walked in this room tonight, I am the only woman. And other than the bartender, I'm the only white person.
Wow. Yep.
And I said, I never knew what that felt like. And now I do. And I've never forgotten it, because we take for granted that it just, for some magical reason, is supposed to become easy or go away. And it doesn't.
Right.
My dear friend David Williams, who's no longer with us, said, I am a Black man. I have Black art. I have interest in Black history, and I walk out every day and I have to function in a white world. And sometimes we just don't realize it. And so the table can help people realize that, and it can help people that have a little bit harder path to follow. Maybe if we make that easier for just one person, then we've done a good job.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So we have a couple questions for you, and you got a shout out from Lakita Stribling.
Lakita.
Dr.
Stribling.
Yes.
Congratulations, my friend.
Yeah, she says, hello, Wanda. So we have a question from Lauren Jones Ladd. Her question is, Wanda, you are incredibly successful in both your professional career and social life. As a mother, how did you manage prioritizing their needs and wants with
mitigating obligations.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't always do a great job, and my children will tell you, and I joke about this, that there were times that they wished I was the cupcake baking, minivan driving soccer mom. Now, neither one of them were that great at soccer. Just want to say that. But one of them was really good at softball, but soccer was not their game. But that's the example they used.
Okay.
And I wasn't that person. But what I did try to do is when I was fortunate that Blackberries had not been invented until they were teenagers.
Yes.
So when I was home, I was present. And, I worked a lot and I worked long hours but I always tried to make time to go to the school and read, go to school and have a lunch. And then on the weekends and at night, no matter what time I got home, I was home and I was with them. Like I said, I could have done better, but the good news is that they, by all accounts, are psychologically healthy. They don't hate me. Matter of fact, they moved to Nashville after we moved here. So, it all worked out. And
to be closer.
Yeah. And they do realize that there were some benefits to the lifestyle that we did have, moving around. They're very comfortable traveling. They make friends easily, and so they realize that some of that was because of the things they didn't like at the time when they were growing up.
Okay. All right. Great. Yeah, I think that the traveling, I tell you, expose your kids. Get them traveling, whether you're walking or driving or flying, whatever it takes. Get them out of their environment. It just makes for a different, better person.
Well, I must have done a good job at that, Lee, because when our older daughter was doing her student teaching, she asked if she could do it abroad, and we said sure. So I'm thinking England,
right.
Italy, Tanzania.
Wow.
Her first choice was South Africa. Her second choice was Tanzania, and her third choice was Thailand.
Wow. So she was going away a long way.
And she did, and she loved it, and she, it was life-changing for her.
Wow. Well, kudos to her parents for giving her up for that, because that's a hard decision for a lot of parents, for their child to be that far away from home.
It was rough.
Yeah. So I can only imagine.
I was glad she didn't tell us some stories until she got home.
Okay. So follow-up question from Lauren. How would you encourage mothers that have significant professional aspirations?
Look, you'd be true to yourself and have honest conversations with your children and your spouse, if they're involved and engaged, about what, and more importantly, not just what you want to do, but why you want to do it, why it's meaningful. And some of it's really hard for the kids to understand about what it means to have a quote better life for them. But like I said, if you look at it, I first generation college, and now both of our daughters have master's degrees.
Wow.
And so hopefully, now, and they're nurses and teachers, so they're not knocking down huge money, but they are doing what is rewarding to them.
Right.
And they have the opportunity to do that. They also have the opportunity to make changes and make different decisions. And so, helping them, helping your family understand the why and not just the what, I think was probably one of the things that I did better than I realized at the time.
Gotcha. That's very powerful. Especially, I think it's very important that we do teach our kids that, hey, success is not measured by what your parents did. Success is measured by what you want to do and what you want to accomplish, and you doing the best you can at what you're passionate about.
If you want to dig ditches, that is fine with me. Just be the best ditch digger you can be.
That's right. And you'll always be in demand. So, yep. So I agree. So another question, this is going to be our last one, I believe, because we're out of time, Wanda, from our YouTube guest, Brad. Brad wants to know, Wanda, can you share your biggest challenge with being a woman in finance?
The biggest challenge was, like I said, moving around and making sure that, I didn't totally disenfranchise my husband. And that helping people not disenfranchise him. Like I said,
Mm.
what kind of man moves with his wife's job?
Right.
That's a tough statement
Yeah.
back it was 1995.
Yeah.
For a guy to hear. And so those were the challenges. Work wasn't, I'm not gonna lie, when you're in an office full of men, sometimes they don't want to have direction from a woman. And equally and somewhat sadly, sometimes women were the toughest critics.
True. I've heard that.
Not always easy, but so I'd say those were the two biggest challenges. Is like I said, making sure that my family stayed safe and happy, and that I could back up my direction to those guys. When I was in the office, that I've earned my spot at the table.
Indeed, yes, you have. So, last question for me. You have big plans for your future. Why don't you share those with us?
As I said, I'm attempting to retire.
Yes.
Pat Emery tells me I'm not going to be successful, but I told him that he'll have to hire me so that I can, do filing for him or something.
Right.
I finished 40 years in financial services, May 10th.
Wow.
And I have the 3 grandchildren. I turned 63 in March, and I was like, just all of a sudden there was this epiphany that it was time. And it was time to, pass the baton to the next generation of leaders. And so it's a little scary,
I'm sure.
but it's exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm not planning to take on daytime TV and stuff. But we'll see what happens. I'm going to clear my head and see what I miss, and then go from there.
Gotcha. Well, congratulations on that decision. As you mentioned, you're going to attempt to do this. I'm attempting, but I'm attempting in transitioning to another business. So
I might have to come work for you. So I've been working since I started working in a law firm when I was 14.
Yeah.
So we'll see if I know how not to go to work every day.
Yeah. Well, I think the important thing. So the funniest things that happen, I know when I interview new clients, especially when it's someone that's retiring from a position such as yours, it's usually a man, obviously, but their wives are thinking, okay, Lee, now what in the hell am I going to do to keep him out of the house? Because when he's home, he thinks he's at work, and he starts trying to tell me what to do. And I ain't having that. I've been running this shop for.
See, that part I'm already ahead of the game, because Jerry has been, retired, and he has a group of golf buddies that he plays golf with about 4 times a week.
Okay, yeah.
And now he's like, oh, I don't want to leave you at home. I'm like, no, you just go.
No, I want you to.
It's all good.
Right. Yeah. So how can people follow you and keep in touch with you? Any social media that you use more often than other?
I really don't. And mainly, I'll give most anybody my email address, but on social media, I feel like people put too much of their, like I told Jerry, if I have to put on Facebook how much I love you, then we're in big trouble.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary. I can tell you face to face.
So
I don't post a lot. I comment on my grandchildren. I comment on friends. I use it as far as like a lot of my charity work.
Okay.
But as far as just Wanda, I'm not on Twitter.
Okay.
But I am on Facebook. You can find me there. Send a friend request. I'm on LinkedIn. My profile's out of date.
But, so if somebody has a question for you, they can email you. What's your email?
So you know what? Send it right now. The easiest one for me to see it would be at work. So it's wanda.lyle@ubs.com.
All right. Wanda.lyle@ubs.com. So if you want to get in touch with Wanda, ask her. Now, she's a busy executive. So don't expect, she's not sitting there waiting on your email.
I do try to get back to you quickly, but if I'm one of the things that I'm bad about is that I think, oh, I want to give that some thought, and so I'll come
Right.
back to it. Then I run the risk of it falling through the cracks. So just ping me again and say, did you forget me?
Yeah, there you go. So, but she's going to be very straightforward with you with the questions that you ask and give you the best answers that she can give you. So, Wanda, any last minute words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our guest?
First of all, I'd just like to say thank you for inviting me. It's been fun talking to you, and I've enjoyed it very much. Know what makes yourself tick and be true to that. If you don't like what you're doing, there's not enough money to make you do it and be happy. So really pay attention to what motivates you and what you enjoy, and go do it.
All right. So go do what you enjoy. I'm with that. I'm with that. Well, thank you, Wanda, so much for taking us up on the invitation and taking out an hour of your time this evening. We really appreciate it. I know our listeners appreciate it. And, the interesting thing is, people go back and pull up our episodes, night after night after night, and they'll check it out on YouTube or on our website as well. So you're touching a lot of people. You'll touch thousands of people just by because of the time you took with us this evening. So thank you very, very much. And I just enjoyed working with you.
It's a great opportunity for women and to highlight people that are doing good things. I'm not talking about me, talk about your other guests, but it's really terrific.
You fit that same category. I tell you what, for me, it's been very exciting to get a chance to talk to so many women that are just doing exceptionally well. And just I understand, as being a person of color, I know how difficult it is for me. And I know that for women, it's difficult, and no matter what shade your skin is, it's difficult just because you're a woman a lot of times. And but to see people that still make it and continue to do well, that they had something extra special that they had to have to get there, and that's their grit.
Lee, I know we're over time, but I wanted to do something. I had a young woman who's super smart, talented, and going to do really more great things than she already has done, who thanked me for making her feel seen. And so what I would leave everyone with is see the people around you.
Yes.
And colorblind is not a compliment.
Right. Exactly.
See and embrace what they bring to the table. Whether they're like you or different from you, just help people be seen.
Yes. And that audience is one to grow on. See the people around you, help them be seen, do everything you can to help them be seen, and embrace who they are, embrace what you see, and enjoy what you see. That's the great thing about it, is you get to enjoy everything that you see. God gave us eyes so that we could see. And even people that don't have functioning eyes will tell you that they can still tell the differences of people, and they enjoy that. And so thank you, Wanda. I love that last statement. And that's one to grow on and one to end on. And I will see you soon, I'm sure, on a Zoom or something.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And tell Jerry we said hello.
I will. You tell Valerie hi.
All right, we'll do. Take care.